as I was saying, tonight we are joined by an august cast. I have Ian, right, Maya, who has played both Tyrnal and Thovin. I have C. Carson. Chris, you see him often in our Discord, a great contributor to the community, and he's played both Corendisith and Brual. Then, of course, Evelyn has played many, many characters in all of my campaigns. And then Terry, who just basically lets his characters quit and move on. Very Shorewin, it's kind of a tell you, like, it's a thing that he does, and that's all fun to talk about. So we have some deaths as well to discuss, and good evening to all of you. So before I jump into, let me have the cast sort of introduce yourself, and think you'd like the viewers to know about you, your Twitch, Instagram, anything you're doing or working on, and we'll start with you, Evelyn.
Hello everyone, I am Evelyn. I am Theater Evie on the internet. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at that handle. And yeah, I've been doing lots and lots of D&D with BlueBox for a few years now. Almost what is it now? Almost 3?
Yeah, I think so.
3.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me.
Terry.
Yeah, so you can find me just about anywhere under either Machik or Machik ED or Roll for Perception. Roll for Perception is also where you'll find me on Twitch, where we stream Monday nights. Our current campaign, which is Outlaws of Alkenstar, Pathfinder 2E on Thursday nights, mini painting nights, yeah, that's where you find me.
Nice. Hi, Senekin. Tracy. All right. Chris.
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, I played Eamon and Brule and Corendithus, and yeah, you can find me on BlueBox Discord. That's about the only place you can find me on on the internet at CCars507. Yeah, that's about it.
Well, so Chris, we're going to start with you in a moment, so be prepared, because you're going to be the first one up. Talk about Corendithus, your intro to D&D. I think this was your first campaign, actually, working with us, and I want you to sort of lead that. But we'll jump over to Ian now. Ian Reitmeyer, software developer extraordinaire.
Yes. Hey guys. Yes, my name's Ian. I've actually was one of the first people to be on the BlueBox RPG stream. Some people might know me as Tyrnal, R.I.P. Tyrnal. He was a great character. Loved him. Sad death. Hopefully we'll talk about that tonight.
We will.
But yes, you guys, I play tons of video games, so if y'all ever see Tyrnal kill you guys in any sort of video game, just know it's me. Nobody else is out there with that handle. So yeah.
All right. So is that like Elden Ring? What games are you playing with Tyrnal as your PC?
Pretty much any game. I'm a big time OSRS, like old school RuneScape guy.
Yeah.
I like playing Fortnite, Warzone, Elden Ring. All of them have my handle Tyrnal in there. So if y'all ever see me in there,
so you're basically you're getting retribution with the name Tyrnal in every other platform digitally, right?
That's where the name came from. I played a lot of WoW back in the day, and we switched servers, and I had to change my name. So it's actually Tyrnal is technically Ian Wright backwards, but with an L instead of the I, because the lowercase I shows up as like a, with the dot on it. So if you have the L, it looks like an uppercase I. So that's kind of where the name came from.
I was today years old when I realized that. I did not know. That was wow. Boom. That's awesome. Well done, Ian. All right. So coming back to Chris, and we will talk about Tyrnal in a moment. Chris, you had not played D&D at all, right, before you came here. So talk to us about your first, what do you think when me and Steve reached out to you and said, hey, let's play some games and come to my dungeon here, and give us the ugly truth of what you felt.
Come play a game in my basement.
Yeah.
No, it was one of those things that was I felt was outside of the box for me. As we've discussed off stream, I mean, I grew up in, a very religious home, and, it was, D&D was the devil. Like, I mean, you basically called down the devil if you played it. So, I mean, there was a little bit of, back and forth.
Satanic panic.
How does this, mesh with, my faith? And then, they said, Steve was saying, well, we're gonna base it on Middle Earth, and I'm like, okay, well, I know Tolkien and the books and everything. It's like, okay, well, let's take a look at this and see what it's like. And I kind of approached it almost like a tabletop MMO, like WoW or something, because that's the only thing I had known up until that point. So, yeah, my first character, Corindithus, I felt I kind of built him almost like an MMO character. There's not really much of a backstory. It's just kind of like, oh, what do I want him to look like? And maybe a couple interesting things or something. But I didn't really know how to build a character in that way. So it was definitely a new experience. And
Evelyn, this gorgeous paint you did.
Yeah,
there he is.
Evelyn painted him, and the episode that he debuted as painted, he died. Yeah, so, but no, it was. I don't know. After the first couple sessions, as I, got the hang of what was going on, I was like, this is something I could really enjoy. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's so good, because the satanic panic and sort of the connection to your faith is a critical part of what we do here in Blue Box, and we believe in this, and we're going to have a stream here in the next probably month dealing with this. But I'm a man of faith, many of you are as well, but ultimately I don't care. Like, all I don't want to have is evil. I don't want to see evil triumph. If you have a campaign where evil triumphs, that is not the campaign I want to run, and I think you have been in concert with that. We do want to talk about how Corindithus died in a moment, but let's go to Tiernal. Tiernal, you had never played anything like D&D before. You showed up in my room and you played. Tell us about Tiernal and how he died.
Yeah, so again, I've never played D&D before up until this point, and I actually did not know that you guys played for a long while I was dating Lex.
Because Lex was hiding it.
She was. She did a good job at it. It was around like 5 months into our relationship when she was like, I got to tell you something. And I was like, all right.
The dark secret of the... We have a dark secret.
And I've never really told anyone that I played WoW. I used to keep that like a big secret. So when Lex kind of told me that you guys played D&D, I felt a little bit more comfortable talking to her about like WoW and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of like how I got kind of into it. And then the next time I went over to y'all's house, she brought me downstairs and I got to see the whole setup, and I kind of really wanted to play. So we ended up getting like the stream started, and I remember going out and buying like the PC and stuff with you and getting all the great stuff set up for the stream, and that was super fun. So yeah, again, I've never really played D&D before, so like writing a character backstory was pretty hard for me. I didn't really know how to do it, so I kind of just went with it and figured out something that I wanted to do with like WoW in a way. So I kind of just meshed WoW with my character and kind of went with it. And I really loved being like a rogue. I've always wanted to be a rogue in WoW. I've never really played it, but I figured D&D would be like a great time for me to kind of get into that little scene of playing like a rogue. So that's how Tiernal was born. Yeah, so do you want me to go into how I died?
Yeah, so it's like, that's obviously the fun part, because I crushed your hopes and dreams. So tell us about how Tiernal died.
Yeah, so this is back in I guess 3 years ago. We were playing, and we had gotten around like maybe 4 or 5 like good sessions in, and we were like on our way back from one of our excursions that we were on, and we stumbled across a bear in a bear cave, and me and Jordan,
a mother bear with cubs.
Mother bear,
yeah,
cubs, yeah. Who was not too fond of people kind of wandering around her cave. But me as my rogue, I figured it would be a great time for me to use my stealth abilities to go in there and maybe even kill this big mother bear. So me and
you were tricked by Jordan. Jordan is at fault for this. I know he is. He's my son, but he's at fault.
So we decided we'd come up with a great plan. I'd go in there and I'd lure the bear out, and he would throw some like sticky glue on the ground to where the bear would get stuck, and then we all could attack the bear. So you know, I go in there and I roll my stealth. Sure enough, I roll super low, and my stealth check did not pass. That bear sniffed me, and as soon as I walked into that cave. So you know,
and then you fled.
I tried to flee. You know, I rolled to flee, and I rolled a 1. And you know, I tripped. So what happened is I tripped over a root.
Yep.
And you know, I tried to roll a saving throw. Turns out I rolled another 1.
That's double nat ones for this poor PC. Like I was so crushed, but
I was devastated because I knew it was the end of the character, and so that bear picked me up, squeezed me, and ripped me in half and threw me on the ground, and that was the end of Tyrannel. And if we could, I wish we could see the VOD of that, because you could just see the life go out of my eyes. I was so sad.
I should have had that. Yeah, actually, it was glorious, because you want characters to be loved by their players, and the way you were invested in Tyrannel when that happened, you were so like broken. I hope you know you literally wept at my table, and it like broke my heart. That's what you want as a DM. That was fantastic, Ian.
I was so sad. I think I was just starting to get into the characters, kind of like the way that the character worked, and I was just, you know, super excited to continue to play, and then just like that, at the snap of the fingers, he was gone, and it was real sad. But yeah, I think there might be a YouTube video out there of it. So if y'all ever want to go back there and take a look at it, there's you'll definitely see me. I was definitely on the verge of tears when my character died.
So Ian, you're saying I'm responsible for the fact you will never play D&D again?
Hey, I would love to play D&D again. If you invited me back, I would play.
Okay. All right. That's awesome, man. Tyrannel was Evelyn, I'm gonna come to you about Tyrannel, because this is one of my sort of core rule sets in my game. PC death should always be a function of 2 things. Almost always. What are those 2 things?
Bad player choice decisions and bad rolls of the dice.
Exactly. Yes, that is almost always why PCs die. It's a combination of poor decisions. Like, and you were not wrong, Ian. It was Jordan. Jordan deceived you. he teased you.
He was evil from day one. And
He was exactly. It was not your fault. He broke you into that, and then of course the double nat ones, and then what you do as a DM, it has to happen that way. All right, let's come back to Chris, and then we're going to come to Terry and Evelyn in a moment. Corendithus, what was his story? How much do you remember about what he was about? And I remember where he died. Actually, it was the Lost Mind of Phandelver adaptation that I was running at that time. So tell me about Corendithus, what he would have been had he not died.
Well, I mean, he was a half-elf ranger, and he was really, I guess, orphaned twice. His parents, he really didn't know much about them. His mom and dad were killed by orcs, or at least that's what was supposed by the scouting party that found him. he then, was taken in by an elderly couple that never had kids. They raised him, and as he grew, they were already late in age, and so about the time he hit early adulthood, they passed on. So he'd really become a loner, and so. He was, being a half elf in Middle Earth, he was in between two groups of people, humans and the elves, and many of the elves were gone. So right. He was just kind of trying to find his place, and under all the loner aspect of him, he did want to find a place where he belonged, and so I think the real draw for him to join the party was actually that Marathalia was there as an elf, which really was kind of surprising for one for him, and then for two, he wanted to learn what elf culture was like, because he didn't grow up that way, and he wanted to find a place. So I had always, that was one of those things that when he died, because he only lasted like 3 or 4 sessions too. He didn't last very long. We got down into the library of Anuminas, and we were spending an evening in one of the rooms down there, and he got ganked by a displacer beast.
He did. I know.
I mean, it was a one shot. I think that was I think it was a crit on him too. I mean, it was one shot. He was down, done. Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely tough, because kind of like Ian said, it's your first character. You kind of, I don't know, it's kind of you grow an attachment kind of quick to the character, and that to have him gone so quick, part of me was like, okay, well, now what does that mean? The game's done for you? Because I, again, hadn't played D&D, so I was like, what do you do in this case? Do you, do they find somebody else to play in the group, or what? So I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So it was just, and it was kind of cool to be able to roll a new character so soon, and kind of put a little bit more thought into him from there. So.
Oh, I like that. Pat 66, that's funny. I guess the conclusion from the first part of our stream is that I suck as a DM, and I kill my PCs all the time. So all of you are broken and not playing anymore. All right, let's go. Let's go. You are too bright about that, Evelyn. You really felt that. Let's address the elephant, Millie. Millie is the most difficult death, I think, in Blue Box history, and her backstory still is not fully told. I know there's been a bit that we've done on the con streams, but really people don't know how awesome Millie's backstory was. Tell us about her, Evelyn.
All right, so Millie was sort of, I've talked a little bit about kind of where the inspiration came from. She was a voice before she was anything else. Like, it was a voice that came to me, and I was like, ooh, I know exactly what this is going to be. But her story was that she had a really rough childhood. She and her younger sister, who she mentioned a couple of times in passing, especially in comparison to Ashran, because she saw a lot of her sister in Ashran. But she and her younger sister had kind of had the initially kind of ideal childhood. They had, their dad was a sailor who worked hard for the family and took care of them, and their mom was a barmaid who was also a performer, and everything had been kind of good until her father had taken this one last job, basically, to kind of get the money so he could retire and be home with his family. And he had met with this fellow who was known as the Shadow King, and had agreed to take on this very strange sort of quest, and he never came home. And when that happened, their mother was completely distraught, because this man was the love of her life, and she took her children and basically left them on their paternal grandmother's front steps and disappeared too. And so Millie ended up being raised with her sister through her formative years by a very, very cold and harsh woman who thought that her son was a screw up and was, no good. And she was basically kind of sort of, fine with the fact that he was believed to be dead. And Millie did not take kindly to that, because she had looked up to her father very much, and she wanted to be a sailor like him. And but this woman, their grandmother kept them on a very short leash, and Millie was only kind of permitted her little bit of freedom was doing the weekly shop for their family, for their food and everything. And she would kind of keep what change she could kind of smuggle away from what was left from buying the food and stuff, and that's how she kind of saved up enough pocket change to buy her freedom. And so that's why money was such a motivator for Millie, was because it represented freedom for her. And she got that money. She bought a little bit of gear and she took what little possessions she had owned with her, snuck out in the middle of the night to snuck onto a pirate ship, and was hiding away. She stowed away, and she was trying not to be found, but she was found trying to sneak some food. And thankfully the crew members were kind to her and basically gave her an option. She could help carry her own weight, pay her own way, join the crew, or she could find her way off the ship. And so she said, sure, I'll take the test. I'll prove my worth. And she ended up traveling with these sailors for a good long time. And she had told the captain about her father, because he was fairly well known amongst sailing circles. And the captain actually said that if he heard word of him, he would let her know. Well, at one point in the story, they actually had heard word. She was given leave to take the time she needed to reunite with her father, because his ship was going to be arriving back in port. She snuck on to his ship she bought her really fancy fashionable things because she wanted to look very impressive, and she snuck onto his ship and kind of waited, and he greeted her with very enthusiasm and oh, my daughter, I've missed you so much. And she had and he was like, well, we have much more to talk about, go rest and we'll talk in the morning. And so she fell asleep, and the next thing she knows, she's on the deck of his ship being bound and gagged and having her feet tied to a chest that was weighted down. And she realized it's her very own father who was doing this. And he pushes her over the edge of the ship in the middle of the ocean and leaves her for dead. And somehow she manages to cut herself free, and she makes it back to shore. And from that day on, she vowed that she was going to get vengeance on her father. And so there was a little bit initially discussion of how to work that part into the backstory with John, and she ended up buying one of the hand crossbow, a small one, and a single bolt that had a very lethal poison attached to it. And that was what she was carrying with her, and that's why she always wore her jacket, because it was keeping that hidden. So but the first time anybody ever saw her without that, it was a really big deal. So yeah, that was Millie's story. She was driven by anger, very much anger at somebody she had been looking for a very long time, but also just a sense of she sought freedom and wanted to live life to its fullest, and that's kind of who she was.
And there was a part of that bolt that was sacrificed at one point. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the bolt during when Gimbal had died, and we were to asked to give something valuable to help or meaningful to help bring him back. This bond that she had formed with these people by that point, she kind of had she hadn't completely let go of her need for vengeance, but she had sort of let it go enough that she was willing to sacrifice that item that represented her eventual vengeance that she was going to get. And so she gave that for Gimbal to save his life. And that was a really kind of huge moment for her.
Yeah.
In her, and like kind of letting go a little bit of that vengeance that she was holding on to so tightly.
Yeah, in that moment, I felt that when you did that. It was a fantastic part of our game. And when Millie sacrificed that on behalf of Gimbal, no one knew her father's story and what had been done to her, but I knew, and it was just so well played. Thank you, Evelyn. Talk about when Millie died. This has been covered a few times, and I don't want to overplay the hand with what happened there, but this comes back to Tyrnal and the same idea that's happened here, which is typically decisions and dice which make the outcome. How did Millie die?
So it was a session where I was actually running myself and Shorwin.
So it's Shorwin's fault. I knew it. I knew it was Terry's fault. I knew it.
But I was running both characters that night, and we were trying to move into this cave where there was an Umber Hulk to get some flowers that we needed to help try to save Ashwin's life. And there was a bit of a tunnel blockage with Brim, and Shorwin got knocked out of the way, and Millie ended up in the line of fire for a massive crit by this Umber Hulk on her, and she was basically thrown like a rag doll and completely just destroyed by this creature.
And resulted in one of the most poignant moments of our entire campaign, the death of Millie. You can find it on our Discord. You can find it in our YouTube channel. Terry, talk to us about Taldar. Taldar was we'll come back to Shorwin in a moment, but Taldar was a beloved fan favorite. And that was a tough night for him. Tell us about him and his backstory, especially because he had a really cool backstory. This is something as a DM I struggle when my players create these gorgeous backstories and all kinds of thoughts and opinions about what they've done and what they've encountered, and then they die and the stories are never told. That really sucks. So that's part of why I want to do this tonight, is to let you tell the story.
Well, I mean, Toldar's backstory was one that was a lot. I mean, anybody who watches knows that for me, I love the storytelling aspect of what we do on Blue Box and what we do in TTRPGs in general. Telling a story to me is so integral to what makes the game enjoyable for me. And Taldar's story, he was a member of a clan, and his clan was wiped out. He came back to camp after being out doing some scouting, and found that the entire camp had been burned to the ground, including his parents. But did not find, I could remember correctly, but did not find the body of his brother. And he was searching. His whole thing was he was searching for information about those that did this to him. And anybody that knows barbarians kind of in Greyhawk setting, they are generally in small groups, especially where Taldar was from. Small groups roamed the lands, and so when your small group is completely annihilated, it has an effect on you, and it did on him. And he constantly wanted to find information, and that's, you know, when things started going on in the game that was pulling him away from there, he was very headstrong about trying to finish up this quest that they were on so that he could then continue his personal quest. And, you know, one of the things that we got into a little bit, but his clan were very much horse riders. His horsemanship was very high, and he lost his beloved steed prior to coming to Loremaster, fairly close to Loremaster actually, was killed. His steed was killed in the Gold Cliffs, and like when he found when they found the steeds at the house that they went to, it gave him another purpose. It made him start to feel again that, you know, he was going in the right direction. And then, you know, his death was part of that. Mm-hmm. He wanted to just keep going. He knew he could survive on little rest. He knew he could survive on little food. He just needed to get this taken care of because he had to find out what happened to his family. And it's kind of how he came to the end.
The end. Tell us about those moments at the end.
Well, I mean, it's tough. You know, you're playing a character and you know the story that you want to tell with your character. And, I play my characters as themselves, and they will do things that they believe are right. They will do things that they believe need to be done, and it is oftentimes can go against what me, the player, would like them to do. And so with him and Rizia moving forward, those two together, and kind of this beginning of a bond between him and Rizia, he just knew that he needed to take swipes at this beast and take it down so that they could continue their journey. Unfortunately, the beast came a bit stronger, a bit better prepared, and was able to take Taldar down in a couple of good shots. And, Taldar fought just like he had in every fight up to that point. He had fought with a ferocity and a belief that he would win in the end. And though, it may seem like he did not win in the end, there was never a doubt in his mind that he would.
All right, so that's fantastic. I do want to talk more about Taldar and also Tellidir, but you also are a big WoW guy. You've had a WoW stream.
Well, not so much. I haven't played in almost a year.
Oh, well, historically, I'm going back to what Ian said. So tell us about like how you have played WoW and what influence that had with D&D for you.
Well, I've been a role player. I mean, and this is the thing, right? I've been a role player since about 2000, and I think I moved to my first role play server in 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. And I role played in World of Warcraft all the time. We had role play events. All of my characters have backstories. I can tell you about the history of Machik and Dakota and Sakala And all of these characters that I've created, they have very extensive backstories and histories and who they are and where they come from. Even one of my first characters, Tablock, which was a warlock, he's got a backstory going back years. And so role play for me is innate at this point. It's just amazing. What I've loved is my transition from World of Warcraft, where you very much you're stuck in the sense that you are within the parameters of a video game, and there are only certain things that you can do at times. The movement to TTRPGs has allowed me to actually expand my ability to role play, because now I can do things that aren't limited by the game system itself, and that's been wonderful. But yeah, I mean, I would for the longest time, my Tauren clan would hold Tall Tales and Epic Fables every month on the first Thursday, and we would get everybody together and we would share stories of our adventures. And it was this wonderful event, bringing people from across the country, across the world on this server together and telling these stories, and it was a blast.
I love that. So back to you, Ian. As a WoW guy, you have played Elden Ring, so many other games. Then when you played live D&D, what was the difference for you? Would you like, and honestly, you can be like critical. Like, what do you like about playing those CRPGs as opposed to live D&D, where you have a DM that kills your character?
Yeah, so I actually, when I had to change my name to Tyrannel, I actually did move over to like a role-playing server. We played on Moonguard. I'm not sure if that's the same server you played on. But yeah, it's a lot different. So with WoW, it's like I didn't necessarily ever think about a backstory or anything like that. I was just hopping on just to go raid and get the best gear possible, you know? and I knew that I could watch YouTube videos to figure out my spell combinations, so on and so forth. So it was like that's a lot different in D&D. You kind of can really do whatever you want. So you don't have a certain like combination of spells that are or abilities that are gonna like net you the most damage, you know, like it's all about rolling in a way. So like with WoW is like I kind of took it as more of just, hey, I'm gonna grind just to get these levels and get this gear and stuff like that. But with D&D is like I kind of, you know, I didn't necessarily make a super extensive backstory because I didn't know necessarily how to do that back then. But I don't know. It was just I guess I could get more connected with my D&D character compared to a WoW character. Like I have multiple WoW characters, and they all just, you know, they're
grind
classes.
Yeah,
and,
right. Yeah,
and, like, and they all just grind basically. I don't really ever think about a backstory or anything like that. So that's definitely like the big difference. And then also like getting into the actual aspect of role playing was very like new to me. I've never done that before, and so it was like almost difficult in a way because I didn't necessarily know how to be vulnerable like that, because it's a very like vulnerable thing
it is
when you're first starting out, and especially
on a stream. Right.
And so it was just like getting into that type of deal to where like I could feel comfortable doing that. It took me a couple sessions to get into it, and then I started to kind of feel a little bit more comfortable, started to kind of get the voice going, and then
you died.
Tyrannel died.
So great DMing, right? Right when my player gets comfortable, his PC dies.
But yeah, so while in D&D, like I can definitely like I could take things from WoW and kind of put it into D&D with like, you know, certain abilities and stuff like that and classes I want to play. But yeah, never really, the role-playing aspect is definitely a lot different.
Has it changed how you play WoW? You still play WoW, right?
Yeah,
or even with Elden Ring, like do you think about D&D when you play Elden Ring? Are you more invested in the story as a result of playing D&D or no?
You know, honestly,
you can say no. It's okay. You can say no.
I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm just a grinder when it comes to video games. Like, I sometimes don't necessarily care about the lore of the story. I'm just there to get to the end game and then do the end game content.
Nothing wrong with that.
and that's just kind of how I've always played video games. And I honestly have never really even thought about like doing it that way. Maybe that's something I should try and do, because RuneScape has like tons of lore to it. So it's like maybe I should get into the actual lore of what these video games that I am playing like have and stuff like that. So yeah, honestly it's a good call. I might start getting more active with kind of the lore and reading a little bit more than just like, all right, I completed this quest, on to the next.
Well, Ian, should you desire to marry my daughter, you must. All right, Chris, talk to us about Brual. He was a fun guy. He's still alive, technically, but he came in after Corinthians, and he was I've had a couple of these. The PCs die, and the new PCs often are sometimes more fun than the old PCs. Brual was meant for you.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because Brual was a dwarf warrior that I played in WoW. So I just grabbed the name and said, okay.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. So you had already played him in WoW?
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I don't think I knew that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and Eamon's orcish name came from a character I played in WoW also. So yeah, I mean, but I absconded with those names, I guess. But Brual, he was a paladin from the the second age.
Right. So they were in the third age.
Fourth age. The second age.
He had been in suspended animation.
Right. So he had actually been in Moria before they had released the Balrog. That's where he grew up and everything. So he kind of fell out of favor with the king, got sent up. Oh goodness, I'm gonna draw a blank on
Library of Animus.
Do it.
The Library of Animus.
Yes, he was going that direction, but was it the first? I can't remember. He was going up there to help the king, the kings of men fight against somebody I cannot remember at this moment.
So yeah, the Agnimar, the sort of northern witch king, was coming down. That was the destruction of Animus.
Yes, and so right before he was going to go into battle with them as he was sent as a messenger from Moria, but he I guess the wizards at the time had decided it would be safer for their relationship with the dwarves that he not die in the battle. So they put him in suspended animation, and of course the library got destroyed and abandoned, and so he was left until the fourth age when our party found him down there, and I actually wasn't present for the episode that he was found, and I don't know, he's just kind of a brash paladin. He's kind of that that typical dwarf, kind of fight before thinking. So a bit gruff, but also a little bit because he'd been so long in suspended animation, really kind of questions his connection with Aule, the god of the dwarves. And so he through our sessions he really had to he had to keep praying, and right before we started heading towards the Shire, he had a moment in the White City where he finally had heard Aule and sensed that he was with him. So it had started to change his I guess his faith had started to be renewed. and he was also alone too. He being woken up after a couple thousand years and not knowing what's going on. He was really kind of lost for a little while. I would love to finish out that story at some point.
And Chris, I need to compliment you because I remember, Evelyn, you remember as well, like he did such a great job, Chris, you did, when he was woken up and struggling and sort of out of his mind after thousands or hundreds years, about 1,500 years in suspended animation, and you played that so well.
Thanks. It was. He woke up in the arms of an orc. So a dwarf in the arms of an orc is, he's gonna freak out. So,
I love it. All right, so let's come back to Evelyn. Another tough one, Moria. Oft discussed. We can discuss how she died. I think that's been rehashed a few times, but if you want to cover that. But I'm really more interested in her backstory, and she had another untold tale. So whatever you would like to talk about with Moria.
All right, so Moria, I got really excited for Moria because it meant I got to do a lot of research on the dwarves in the area near the Great Kingdom, which I remember actually one Sunday going up to John and being like, I found so much information, I'm so excited.
I remember that. I know, I remember.
And so, I started doing a lot of research into the dwarves that lived in Gluvardum in the Gloriolus Mountains that are just south of the Great Kingdom.
Right.
And I found this really cool, kind of plot motivator thing for her, which made her a bit of an enemy of the Great Kingdom and the surrounding areas because of the fact that her clan and the dwarves in the Glorious Mountains actually spent a lot of time trying to protect the Sundi from the Great Kingdom because the Great Kingdom had incurred and attacked them quite a bit, and so that established kind of her initial reason why she was not very happy to be dealing with people in the other areas. Moria's story was very much based on all of the research that I had done about the Gluvardum dwarves. They have compulsory military service when they reach young adulthood, and so she had actually done her service. She had some brothers and a mother and father who had all been through it previously, but she had taken up with the Church of Baranar True Silver, and that was the sister church to and I'm totally blanking on names right now, but the major church of Baranar's husband, who is, I can't remember, but he's the other major dwarven deity. So she, after she had completed her compulsory service, she actually stayed with the church to basically act as a medic for the soldiers as they came back from their various incursions and things, and just generally trying to protect the kingdom. And she had actually met another cleric who was in service to the other dwarven deity, who actually she fell in love with, and that was her fiance. They had been engaged to be wed.
I know, it was so sad. I love this whole story, and it was never told.
And one night she was out in the field, she just, in her tent resting, as part of what she did, so that she was out in the field for the next day for helping, as she does, because she's cleric, and she was kidnapped by a bunch of strangers and taken into the Great Kingdom, and because apparently someone was very interested in her. and she never really found out who that was, but she did manage to escape her captors, and she was determined to get back home. She was very much wanting to get back to her fiance, and she and her duty, but primarily the person that she loved. But she had felt called by Baranar to the area where they ended up in Loremaster. She felt called by Baranar there, so she felt like she had to complete whatever she had been called to before she could go home again. And so that's why she very quickly kind of made herself a place in the party, because she felt like that was part of what she was called to do. And so yeah, that was her story as short form as I could make it, because I think that was one of my longest backstories I've ever written for John. It was
I know, pages. And it was one of my favorites, and that moment of her death was the hardest for me as a DM. I think of Millie was difficult. All of Terry's characters dying or leaving was fine. I didn't mind that at all. But yours were hurtful. Terry, it was a joke. Come on, crack a smile. I'm just teasing. But no, it was like, Moria had such a great backstory. It was one of my favorite characters. And, those full-clad plate mail soldiers rushed in, and she did what she would do, and she played it correctly. I have no begrudging of that, except that I missed that story. So thank you, Evelyn. We're going to come back to you in a moment, Terry, with Shorwin, but let's go back to Ian right now. Thovin. Now, Thovin, that was a different kind of death. You could be. Let's bring the real here, my friend. This is a part of a relationship problem. So go ahead.
Yikes.
It's fine. Be honest, be blunt. It's fine. I'll deal with my daughter. It's okay.
Yeah, so Lex and I went through a little issue. So, I wasn't around to play D&D for a little while. And, we didn't know if I was going to be coming back or not. So, the way that Thovin died, which honestly, I started to love Thovin more than Tyrannel in a way. Thovin was way better.
And so tell them what Thovin was as a PC.
I forget.
He was an assassin.
I know he was right.
He was a black-clad thief assassin.
Yeah, he was definitely an assassin. I forget the exact class that he was, but he was like a rogue mixed with like an assassin, and he was the stealthiest dude. He was a half elf, and I mean, anything that you needed done in stealth, that man could take care of it. But yes, so when we didn't know if I was going to be coming back or not, take Lex's anger out on me. They decided to.
Arathi? Was that her paladin's name?
Yes, it was. She became a bad paladin and
anti-paladin.
Decided to rip my throat out and then throw me down a cellar. Honestly, it was probably warranted. So yes, Thovin died a sad death, and then Arathi fled and never seen again. Who knows? She might come back at some point.
She might. Yeah. So she literally pulled him out, ripped his throat out. It was a sort of revenge killing based on IRL, but it was a tough campaign moment. So Ian, I'm sorry, you played like 7 times and had 2 characters die. Come back to my table at some point. You have a better chance of surviving, I hope. Go ahead.
Whenever you have me back, I'd love to play. So just let me know whenever y'all have a free spot, and I'll come on down there and play with y'all.
All right, sounds good. All right, that was a tough one though. I still remember she was quite. There was vitriol in her eyes. She pulled you out of that pit, and I grab his throat. I rip his larynx. She was. It was tough. Terry, Shorwin. And then, of course, the most important, Tellydir. Tellydir, I've gotten so many texts, people hitting me on Discord. What the heck is Terry doing? There is some backlash coming, but I'm I'm sensing what you did and why you did it. But these two characters are now two that you have pulled out because of this story. And tell us about that.
Well, I mean, not to belabor it, but you put it so succinctly. It's the story, and it's the story that needs to continue. Look. If it was about clicky clack dice rolls, I would just go wherever with whatever character I have. If it's about big crits and big swings of my axe, I do exactly that. But it's about the story for me, and Shorewind's story was a good story.
It was a great story.
And he found his sister, and he wanted to stay with her, help her, make sure she was okay. And he wasn't going to be able to do that traveling. Wasn't going to be able to continue, with her in the back of his mind. His full focus wouldn't be on staying with the party and adventuring as it was. It was sad in a way, because Shorewind is such a great character. I enjoyed the heck out of playing him. But he needed to follow what he needed to follow. And, I in the back of my head, I write my little story about what he's been doing since then, every now and then again. And, he's doing okay, in my mind. But he doesn't regret his choices. He had been slashed open.
Yeah.
Pretty viciously. He had been near death on his horse. He had been pretty brutalized over the time that he was there.
True. It's all true.
And he needed to be there for his sister. And Telliadir's a different situation.
Yeah, and that's the one people are really asking about. So give the audience what they want to know. Telliadir and why. I think I know. I understand, but I want you to say it so that the players and the viewers can understand.
Anybody who's been watching the stream consistently saw Telliadir in more danger as a member of the group than he was when being attacked by enemies. He never once got hit by an enemy, and twice was either manhandled or aimed at by those that he would quote unquote consider his party. And Telliadir was an intellectual, and Telliadir had to do what was safest for him. And even with the words that were said by Rizia and Anaho, and what's even worse, those were the two that made it such a terrible situation. So his trust in their words were non-existent. He had only been with the group for 2 days and dealt with more trauma from them than he had, in the prior month of traveling that he had done. It didn't make sense to keep him with as a member of the party. Especially going into a situation, there's no reason for him to take up the mantle of helping Rizia. Anaho, yes. Alora, yes. Erasmus, yes. They've been through a little bit more. But to be sent to another land and essentially be made to be the patsy for Yaj Talks doesn't make sense to him. And so it just made sense to let that story go.
I like that. That makes perfect sense. So, Evelyn, you were in the campaign. Any thoughts on that? And then Ian and Chris, coming from the outside, you didn't see this, I'm sure. Any thoughts on what Terry just said in terms of your PC walking away for the story base. And this is, I think, something that's probably different than WoW. Like if you're playing WoW, it's more of the hack and slash. And Terry, I want to come back to you after this and ask how D&D, PF2E, Roll for Perception, Blue Box have changed how you're playing your game. Yes, go ahead. That's fine, Ian. Chris, any thoughts on that? Like when you hear him say his PC walked away from the game for roleplay reasons, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think that makes sense. There's times where, even when Eamon joined the Heroes of Sandpoint, just being so completely opposite of Cade, like there were times at which I was like on the border of like, what does Eamon do in this situation? Like, he just like he'd be really uncomfortable. So I can totally see why you would take a character and say, you know what, it just doesn't make sense for that character. And I think, I think that was something at least for me that, I may even have played Eamon differently now than I would have back when I started.
How so?
I didn't have the experience.
How so? How might you play him differently?
Oh, well, I mean, there's, excuse me, sorry. There's a couple things in his backstory that like, we had actually talked about early on, and I never could get traction going with it because Eamon, from about the age of, I don't know, like 10 or 12, was raised by a gnome. Mm-hmm. And gnomes love to play pranks on people. Well, that was something that I kind of wanted to try to do, especially with Cade, is kind of start, play some pranks on Cade, because Cade is, Cade's Cade. I was able to do that once, but I feel like Eamon became maybe a little more serious than I would have played him. Now. But yeah, I kind of got to a point where it's like, well, you've gone so long at this point, it doesn't make sense to make that a defining characteristic of the character, going forward, because all of a sudden it seems like it's out of character, even though it may not have been. But because you've played him in a specific way for so long, it's just like it doesn't make sense for him. And I think that's, there's times where, at the bar, where Cade, gets the barmaid to dance with Eamon right. In Magnemar. That was, I probably, if I were to play it now, Eamon would have just said, well, whatever, get it. I'm out of here. He would have left. He would have left him at the bar. It just, this Cade being Cade, he's had enough of it. So I don't know. It's I guess experience has a lot to do with that. As you grow and learning the game and how to role play, the way you play your characters is maybe becomes more true to their backstory, if you can remember all those nuances.
And John, I just want to say, John, this actually goes back. I have deleted WoW characters to further story arcs.
Oh, what's that mean?
I have deleted leveled up characters because they needed to die or disappear.
Ian, have you done that?
That would hurt my soul if I did that. I have some characters with disgusting amount of playtime on it. So if I deleted one to further a story arc, that would really hurt my soul.
Could you just sort of add the story arc at the end to you, because they're so powerful? Like, I can make a story to go around this powerful player.
Yeah, I think you probably could. But deleting your character, wow, that's some like high level stuff.
Next level.
I'm proud of you for doing that. Like, I know how much time it takes to level up a character.
And I'll tell you, the story was great. It was Sakala's death. Sakala was the brother of Dakota, and Sakala had started Earthspear clan, and Sakala Sakala and his brother Dakota had actually lost each other when they were kids, and I brought them back, but I needed Dakota to take charge, and I had this great story idea, and Sakala ended up having to do something it was for something, but he ended up going away, and I spoke with a couple of my other role players in the guild, Aitana being the main one, and we devised a story on where Sakala would die. And the reason for the deletion is it removes Sakala from ability to look him up as a character and things like that. So to really make the character dead, I deleted that character.
All right, so let's do a little WoW comparison here. So Terry, what's your highest level character, and Ian, what's your highest level character in WoW?
Oh, it's whatever the max is right now. I was raiding in Shadowlands, so it's probably the same. Yeah, but the last raid that I partook in was, what was it?
Nathria, Castle Nathria.
Yeah, Castle Nathria.
Yeah,
that was a great raid.
Oh, it was very good.
Yeah, my character is 60. They actually changed it. So originally it would go up to like 120 was Battle of Azeroth, and so that would take a long time to grind a character up to that. But they wanted, the freaking numbers were insane. I mean, you were hitting like millions up there. So they did like whole like damage and level kind of like step down. So now the highest level is like level 60. Which I kind of enjoy a little bit more, because you're not hitting you're not doing casual DPS of like 60,000. You're doing more like 8-9k DPS, which is like damage per second, which is like a lot more, kind of makes a little bit more sense than a character's hitting like millions.
Right.
And then also like, I feel like it's a little bit easier nowadays to level up a character. So when did you kill your character off, if you don't mind me asking?
This would have been Mists of Pandaria, I believe.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was tougher back then.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's been a lot of fun though. It's definitely got me more into the spirit of playing D&D. Than I definitely would have been if I never played WoW before. So it's definitely like a blessing in disguise, because I didn't necessarily know I was ever gonna play D&D before. So being able to switch into WoW. Matter of fact, I main a rogue now, and that's honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it's because of D&D that I wanted to go and play rogue on WoW. And so it's like,
give Tyrnal another chance.
Out there and play, right?
Yep,
Tyrnal's the name, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I love it. Chris, back to you. You would never play D&D. We're going to do the Satanic Panic show here in the next few weeks, and I would like you to join us. But as you are sort of evaluating what you've done here in this game, you played role-playing games, you're a software developer. What is your current thought on the impact of D&D and what you've done with Blue Box on your gaming, your imagination, your creativity, your storytelling, your other sort of online gaming?
I mean, as far as online gaming, a lot like Ian, in that, when I get on, I just get on to, blast through things. I don't, I say I'm a recovering addict of WoW. I haven't played in years. I mean, Wrath of the Lich King was the last time I played any serious WoW. Part of that is just it's time consuming. Part of it was had 3 kids, and that they took priority. So
what kids? No, not priority. No, get your priorities straight.
So I mean, as far as creativity, yeah, I mean, it definitely forced me to be more creative. In fact, I had written a backstory for another character that actually kind of got morphed into Eamon. And I did that just because I had an idea one day, and I just had to start writing it down. And then that's just not, that was never anything that I would have done in the past, it's like, oh, that's, interesting idea, stick it away in your head and, move on. Because, I didn't foresee any need to have a new character in D&D. And then, and then I had the opportunity to join Rise of the Rune Lords, and I was just like, okay, yeah, we're I guess we are going back to this. So I like I said, I adapted that to be a little bit more. I wanted a little bit more diversity in the party, because my character would have been human if I had left it the same. I was like, well, we're all humans except for really Irida, because she's, has an R, but she's still kind of human. So right. It was like, okay, let's go with half orc. So I had to adjust that. But yeah, it's one of those things that, when I first started playing that, those first couple sessions, and Corendithus died, and it's like, I enjoy it, but I wasn't, I guess, invested, and and now it's like, I miss it. I haven't played in since Eamon died, so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, wish I had a group. So just not many people around that. Around in this area that are into it that I know of. So,
well, perhaps you'll be back on Blue Box soon, my friend. All right, so we have just a few minutes left. Any final thoughts from any of our panelists? Anything wild? Anything you want to talk about? Anything at all?
I know that
there was.
Ian, then Chris. Go ahead, Ian.
So I know the feeling of the addiction. The recovering addict, that's hilarious, because I try and take breaks from WoW, and then every now and again I'll just get this itch and
relapse.
I gotta play, and so that's kind of what's happening right now. All my buddies just kind of got into it, so we're all, I don't know, we all got the itch. It was funny because I feel like we're all in the same cycle. We all message each other on Discord, and we're like, yo, I kind of got the WoW itch right now, trying to play, and so it's just a never-ending cycle.
All right, Chris.
I had actually a question for you as far as, these characters die. How far into the future do you have kind of a story maybe planned for some of them, and how invested are you in those characters? Because you've got to plan out this campaign, and as we saw, all the stuff that happened with Irida, all the stuff that happened with Ixen and all that, and Cade, and it's just kind of I've always wondered, because to me I go, man, what did John have planned for Corendithus? What did John have planned for Eamon? And just though that's the part of the story that I was excited to see, and it never actually came to fruition.
Chris, best question ever on LMA, and you're exactly right. I struggle with that many times. I have so many stories and ideas, and they're all sort of running around in my head. I some have some written out and pre-planned, but even as Terry is wearing my 50th anniversary or 50th birthday shirt tonight to mock me how old I am, I know what he's doing. I always love the fact that my PCs and players are invested. And yeah, sometimes, I had ideas for Millie, Moria, Eamon, Corendithus, it's Tiernal now, kind of early on. We didn't get that far, but I have these ideas for these stories, but ultimately, I believe in agency and decisions. And if you look at, let's come back to Terry. I've gotten, again, Terry, many messages in the last 24 hours. But my point to anyone that messages, that's part of agency. We felt like this was a railroad in many places in GHA Book 2, which really it wasn't, but it was kind of, because that was the story. You had Drax the Invulnerable with the glyph, but then the ultimate agency is to say, I'm out. Shorewind, check out. Tyrannel, die. Teleator, check out. You can, and that shows that you have that agency in the game. And ultimately for me, Chris, I do like telling these stories and making sure each PC's story is told. I do have plans, but just like they do. And if ultimately the story is not told in that fashion, then we have to honor that. That's part of the game.
And John, I just want to say, if people are watching and if they're ever curious about it, feel free to reach out to me. I have no problems talking about why I choose my things. I love talking about why I choose what I do, because I think there's a wonderful reason for that. I will say that the current character that is in creation, I think, will be very different than what people have seen me play, so I'm very excited about it, and I think we'll fit the group a bit better as well.
No, I'm with you on that. And by the way, Terry, you've probably seen this. You're an instructor in college. I've seen this in my own career. Sometimes at certain levels, people just won't ask you. They'll ask someone else. So this is your chance once and for all. Tell us why Teleadir bounced. I think you already gave us a good description, but tell it one more time. So anyone that wants to know, you don't have to message me. You don't have to message Terry. This is why Teleadir bounced.
He felt like his life would be in danger from the party and not from the enemies.
That's fair.
And it had seen that at least twice. He had seen Rasmus's shadow pet. He had seen what had felt like danger, and he was an intellectual wizard. And he believed that it was safer not to stay with that group.
Which I think was very fair. All right, I'm going to have a final thought from each of you. Let's start with you, Evelyn. Final thought.
Why do you have it out for my characters with M names?
So as a child, I was beaten by someone. No, I don't know why. I don't think I do. Maybe I do. I don't know why.
Because Marthaliel died intentionally. You killed her intentionally, which I did not know you were going to do until after it happened, and there was a reason why. And
yes.
So it made sense, and I was brought back, thankfully. But Marthaliel, Millie, and Moria all have died.
Why do you keep making characters with M names? That's the real question.
John, you notice now I don't name them M names anymore.
Well, you shouldn't. There's 25 other letters in the alphabet to choose from. Stop the M's.
I like them.
John, I'll try and keep that alive for you because her current character in mine is Maddie.
All right. Well, you know what to do, Terry. You know what to do. That's awesome. All right. Let's go to you, Ian. Final thoughts.
Yeah, Terry, it seems like you're like big into role play, and I love it, man. That's awesome. Like you're all about it, and I think you probably make this stream absolutely amazing. So,
Well, thank you.
Keep it up. Like, even in WoW, like that's awesome that you kind of did that back.
He's just impressed you killed your characters.
No, I mean, like, that's really cool. So I definitely think people should almost respect what your decisions are, because it kind of makes the story almost even better.
It does. It does. And that's part of what I was dealing with even last night, because Terry, I love what you did. If I were Teleadir, I would have done the same thing. We saw Anaho point a crossbow and shoot Elora Wolf. We saw Rasmus pushing out Rasputin, this demonic shadow creature. It just everything about this party was frightening. And Teleadir had every reason to want to bounce. And I know it was kind of a disrupting moment for the game, but I thought it was the right play. So well done. All right, Chris, final thoughts.
Oh, I mean, I was just gonna say, yeah, props to Terry for the RP and WoW. I mean, I remember playing, and I had no idea what that was about, and I was just like, those are like real nerds. So I'm just being honest. And then now I'm gonna go, hey, I see the appeal. I never saw the appeal, but no, I mean, with this. I guess mainstreaming of D&D, through various streams that have become popular. I think you're really seeing just a new breed of artists that people didn't kind of discounted in the past, and it's nice to see that some people get the opportunity to show the abilities that they have. It's really cool.
Well said. Terry, final thoughts, and also you can shout out your Monday stream.
A big thing is, when it comes to character death, don't be afraid of it. We all love our characters. I mean, we put so much time and energy into creating them and developing a backstory. But know that in the long run, it's those memories that you'll have that make those characters so great. And if they go out, whether it's via battle or a plot twist or turn, know that they will be remembered, and you will have something to cherish and talk about far into the future. So play the game how you want to play, but don't ever be afraid to let your character go.
All right, so final question. Does that discourage elaborate backstories? In fact, I don't even think I ever got Teliadir's backstory. And if I'm wrong, correct me.
You didn't get Teliadir's because I was having trouble coming up with something for him. To give you an idea, I've already started the backstory of my next character. And so Teliadir's creation came at a time where I had some other things going on in life, and I was not able to fully concentrate on it. And so that's what happened there.
Yeah, but, I was not throwing shade, but I want to say as a DM.
I know, I'm explaining. And then that's why he never really had a real backstory. Is sometimes things out of game can affect what you're doing in game, but I don't think, at least for me, to give you an idea, John. So my players on Monday night, they are currently in the process of robbing a bank. I'm literally writing the story of a teller that they will never see or hear again in this game, more than likely, because for me, it's fun just to create that story.
Sure.
And so it depends on the person. If somebody who does not enjoy the creating elaborate backstories, it might be different. And I totally understand that. But for me, I will any day of the week write up a backstory for someone or something because it's fun. And so it'll never stop me from wanting to create new characters with new backstories.
Evelyn, for you, when you've seen Milia die, Moria die, is there ever a point where because as a DM, I'm just being vulnerable and honest, I fear this. I'm like, oh, do they really want to create another backstory? This character lasted 2 sessions. I paid $200 for artwork from Hob, and now the character's dead. They're not going to want to write another backstory. Does that ever enter in your mind?
So, not really. I have, and this because I gave you the rough outline of Laura, but I haven't been able to put the words down yet because I've been so scared of her dying. But I understand who she is, and that's something that at least helps. But yeah, it's not that I don't want to write the backstory. I'm just a little nervous.
I'm as a DM, I'm saying you put a 9-page backstory together with all these relationships and interconnected stories, and then 2 sessions later you die, and then you're like, okay, make a new character, and you're like, really? I'm gonna put that time in, John? Really? I get that.
So yeah, I love making the stories. I get a little bit of post character death trauma, maybe.
Fair enough. It's the dice. It's not John. Thank you, Moose. It's usually both. It's players and it's dice, and sometimes it's DM. This has been so much fun. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it, and we will have another follow-up session with a couple others that have had PCs which have perished in these campaigns. And we do not relish those. I am not a PC killer. I am a DM that likes to have a realistic game, a game which, honestly, all I try to do is play the game that I would want to play in. As a player, I would want a game in which the story is real, my PC has danger, and then I feel connected to what happens, that tension between life and death, and the outcomes of the stories, the reality, the impact on the game world, all the things that we're talking about here today. That's the game I want to play, and that's what I try to DM. I'm sure I don't get it right all the time, but that is my goal. And so thank you all for being part of Blue Box. Thank you, Ian and Chris. Old school players. Chris, we might figure out a way to get you on a couple of one-shots or some stuff we do remotely, because I know you're in another state. And then Ian, you might have opened the can of worms tonight. We may need to talk. And with all that said, thank you to all of our viewers. We do have one question for you tonight before we close off and do our raid. If you're watching tonight and you've not followed, or if you're a follower who has not subbed, or if you're a sub whose sub is expired, we have one question for you tonight. What are you doing? Come on, give us a follow, give us a sub. I'm going to set the raid off, and I'll open it up to the group for any final thoughts as I get my raid on.
Check us out Monday nights, twitch.tv/roll for perception, all one word. We're streaming Outlaws of Alkenstar, going to be real exciting. Tomorrow night, we will be streaming a bit of mini painting.
Evelyn?
Just, enjoy every moment with your characters, because you never know when it'll be the last one. And, we're all here to tell stories. And
well said.
Whatever the story is, how long or short it is, what matters most is that you make it a good one.
That's well said. Thank you. And of course, Blue Box will be back on Sunday morning. Our Rune Lords campaign concludes a 2-year session. The final episode of Rune Lords will be happening this Sunday. You do not want to miss that. We may have some surprises for you as well. So Blue Box now raiding into Careful Cantrip. We have 10 seconds and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And raiding now. Bye-bye. See you, everyone.